What's going on, guys? Jeff here, Mad Hatter's Reef, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 things you should do every time that you are picking out saltwater fish for your reef tank. But before we jump into that, if you're new to the channel, this is where we talk about everything reef tank related. So if you love yourself some reef tanks, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you can be in the know every time that we upload a new video. Let's jump into it.
Coming in at number 5 on our top 5 things to do when you are picking out saltwater fish is observing the fish before you buy it.
So when it comes to observing your saltwater fish that you're going to purchase, whether it be at a small mom and pop store, highly recommended, or a chain, so biased. You really want to pay attention to the fish that you're going to be buying, making sure that they are looking the way that they actually should look and acting the way that they should act. Not just necessarily how a standard clownfish would act, but making sure that's not too aggressive with the other tank mates that are in that aquarium with it. Now, as far as overall inspecting the health of the fish, I'd make sure that the fins don't look rotted. Fin rot is a real thing with saltwater as well as freshwater. There's also, different types of bacteria issues that can come up, most of which are curable. But if you're going to pick up a fish, you might as well make sure that it's healthy, and doing a little observation before actually purchasing the fish is definitely going to help you out and make sure that you're on the right track.
Coming in at number 4 on our top 5 things that you should do before picking out a saltwater fish is asking the store if they would feed the fish.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Can you feed the fish for me?
Yeah, I can do that for you.
Thank you.
Now, this one can kind of ride the coattail of number 5, where we talked about observation, observing the fish, making sure that they are healthy. And definitely, if you have a fish that is actively feeding, that's a pretty good indicator that it is healthy. Now, if it has a sunken belly and your fish store is willing to actually feed the fish and show you that it is actively feeding, even if it has a little bit of a sunken belly, that's not necessarily a deal breaker. It might just be that the fish has been in there. There might have been, a fish that was a little bit more aggressive on the feeding side of things and outcompeting that fish for food, which is a very common thing that can happen in a fish store, especially if they're a heavily stocked fish store. But I would be concerned for the fish that had a sunken belly that was not actively feeding.
Now, it's probably important to mention that, stores have schedules, and it might not necessarily work out that your fish store is going to be able to feed the fish on request. It would be kind of crazy, for every customer to come in the store, but can we feed the fish? Can we feed the fish? That'd get kind of crazy after a while. So, if they are willing to do that, it's going to show you the fish is healthy, feeding, and acting as it should.
And coming in at the number 3 spot on our top 5 is asking the store whether or not that fish has been quarantined.
So quarantine, right? Quarantine is not necessarily something that has to happen at the store, and I'm not necessarily saying a store is good and or bad if they offer quarantine or don't offer quarantine, because like much of the things that can happen in the world, you only really know if it's being done properly, or at least to your specifications, if you are specifically doing it yourself. But it is good to ask that if the fish had been through quarantine or not, just so you know what you're working with.
And coming in at the number 2 spot on our top 5 things to look for when you are picking out a saltwater fish is the length of time that the fish has actually been at the store. Now, if it's a new arrival, there's a good chance that there could be something wrong with it. And typically when a fish arrives at a store, if something's going to go wrong, it's probably going to go wrong in the first week that it is there. Now, from a fish store point of view, the fish that have been in the store the longest are actually the fish that the store wants to get rid of, not necessarily the fish that just arrived. I mean, at some point they all need to be sold because that's how the store is going to stay in business. But a fish that has been in the store for a long time is taking up space, it's eating food, it's going to end up costing the store more to actually keep that fish. Keep in mind that a fish store isn't in business to keep fish, it's in business to sell fish. And really, ultimately, it's a better deal for the hobbyists in the end, even though that typically the fish that are left behind are your more common fish, the fish that are plentiful in the hobby, but they are going to be healthier because they've been around longer. A fish that has just shown up, you don't know if there's something wrong with it, but a fish that has been in the system that looks great, that's feeding, that is sociable, is going to be the best deal that you can find in a fish store, period. Now, as far as getting the information, how long a fish has been in there or not, you could stop in often and see for yourself how long the fish has been there. But you can also ask the fish store employees or owner how long this fish has been here, and typically they're going to let you know. And if it's a fish that has been there for a while, they're probably going to be chomping at the bit to get it moved out the door. And coming in at the number 1 spot on our top 5.
And last but not least, can't be least because it's number 1, is buying aquacultured fish. Aquaculture fish are much more adapted to aquarium life. They're going to be much healthier because typically they're coming from a lab environment, especially if you're dealing with a fish store that does direct business with a supplier. Hey, if you're still watching and haven't hit that thumbs up yet and are enjoying this video, please do so. It helps the channel out, helps get us out in front of new folks, and helps the YouTube overlords know that this is a good video on this topic. And if you are a unsubscribed person that has made it this far into this video and want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button so you can be in the know every time that I upload a new video. Don't forget to mind the bell. The one thing that I do want to avoid when it comes to saying that aquaculture fish are always healthy is there's some mishandling that can actually happen with that animal. Usually when you're dealing with a breeder, they are not going to have any diseases going on in their systems because it would be absolutely devastating to their business. So generally the fish is pretty healthy once it leaves the breeder, but once it leaves the breeder, there's a lot of opportunity for it to actually become infected, whether disease or parasite, whatever the case may be. So I'm pretty hesitant to say the word they're always healthier, but they are much more adapted to aquarium life and generally healthier. So that's definitely something to consider, and that's why aquaculture is coming in at the number 1 spot. Now, it's incredibly important to make sure that you're doing your research for your fish before you're adding them to your tank. And if you want to learn more about saltwater fish, check this video out. I will see you over there.